DM made a game for 1 player. IF had only been playing 4th for a few months back in 2011 with my roommates and my husband and boyfriend. One of my roommates had been a DM before and asked if we wanted to start a second game to play every other week to give our current DM a break and get to play. We all agreed excitedly and wrote up characters. I played a Scion, my husband a Warden, my roommate a Druid, our other roommate a Ranger. And our DM decided to play 3 NPCs, a Fighter, a Wizard, and a Cleric. We figured our party was a little small so 3 NPCs would be helpful. Except we never got to do anything. The Druid got to do everything. The story centered around her entirely, which was mostly alright as she had the most important backstory, and it could cause the biggest conflict which we all thought would be fun. Again, this wasn't a problem and brought us together as a group rather quickly as we all wanted to protect her from the BBEG. We were traveling around trying to find a way to defeat the BBEG as he was a super powerful necromancer. We kept coming across things that required our skill checks for, like locked doors, heavy boulders hiding a secret passage, a language scrawled on the walls, etc. We kept offering to move things, decode things, or even a simple perception check, but our DM would say, "Don't worry, NPC has it. Oh, NPC is already deciphering the language." All except for the Druid. If she wanted to do something the DM would let her. It got to the point that we were all just playing around on our phones, or stacking dice, or drawing. We complained a little about not getting to do anything, and she'd just throw us into super hard combat whenever we did. So we stopped complaining for fear that she'd kill off our characters, and anytime we'd go into a new place to investigate she'd ask what our characters would do, and my response would always be, "I hold the torch." We still had fun doing a few other things in the campaign, and she was our roommate, so we didn't want to quit the game, but it really made it not fun when all the excitement we ever got was combat. The DM's friend wanted to bang my child character. So back when I was 16 I was in a group. I went over my character idea in a session 0, and it was agreed that it would be alright and wouldn't be any problems. She was a changeling druid aged at 9 years old. I based her on Annie from League of Legends, even using one of her skins as my token. So everything is fine for a while. My character is taken care of by the group as kind of a little sister. That's until the DM said his friend wants to try out D&D, so will be joining our group. Let's call him Barry. Barry rolled a standard chaotic good rouge human and immediately introduced him as a playboy. My character was the only girl in the party, and I was the only female player too, so you can imagine where this is going. I ignore this weird comments and trying to hit on my character for a while before we get to a tavern. My character obviously couldn't drink, so asked for some milk. What I didn't know is that Em and Barry were private messaging, and Barry rolled successfully on stealth to spike my character's drink. My character became drunk and his advances got even stronger. Some fellow party members told Barry he was being a creep, which led into an argument before the session finished early. Between that session and the next session I received multiple DMs from Barry hitting on me. I told him I wasn't interested in him as I was 16, while he was in his 30s too, had a girlfriend. Ensue the homophobic messages. So we reach the next session. For one reason or another my changeling turns into an adult version of herself to try pretend to be her own mother. It was very obvious it was still her due to the way I played her and her distinctive appearance, but Barry decided to try hitting on her once more. She's technically legal now, so it's okay. Later in the tavern, as the party was going to sleep, my character went back to her room. Another player decided from now on my character wouldn't be left unaccompanied, which I'm glad for. Barry started going off. I'm going to try sneak into Op's room. Chaos ensued. I'm going to steal all of her things, DM allows it, and with an at 20 all of my character's belongings. Inventory, even her teddy bear was gone, and he sold it off to the Rouges Guild. Another party member questions why he would do that to only my character, and in which Barry responds, because she's mega gaming. Both confused and fed up, I quit right then and there. Luckily for me, the other 3 players backed me up and left too. Man, I just wanted to be a lil arsonist. Unsure why I deserved that. This happened a few years ago, so I dropped them long ago. M26 joined an online session just before COVID started getting rampant for the first and last time, and was invited by, let's call her JF26. We met a few times DT through mutual friends. We have a bar here called Villains that does D&D related stuff and I saw her there too to my surprise. So I hop on Discord on agreed day and meet her friends. They all seemed nice and were a part of her sorority and told me some funny stories. The DM came on last and said hello to everyone, and he noticed I was in and asked who I was. I felt kinda singled out, but Jay explained she invited me. Since they are work friends, I guess he just let it go. The DM then seemed fine and the 6 of us kicked off. We started in a typical you're in prison scenario. Get out. I played a rogue, so I thought perfect my skills would be useful here. The DM quickly exclaimed that I wasn't there and not to interrupt. We just kinda laughed it off. After they got out, no problem, it was my turn and apparently I was in a deeper part of the prison and I was being tortured. Shackled by my hands and feet and gagged. Being poked with sticks by guards. The worst part is that he said I didn't have any chance to escape since I was bound, therefore prone. They do horrible things to me and then he kills my character. I was so confused and didn't know why I deserved that. I just go home. I love this sub, but I've played with the same PPL for 30 years, so I've no horror stories. Or so I thought. I've just remembered an acquaintance of mine begs me to run some mutants and masterminds for them. I asked the players who their favorite superheroes were, whipped up a session, and I was ready to go. Players are expressway versions of Thor, the Doctor and the Invisible Women. Skipping to the good part. Me, the speech is caught short by a large explosion and a shout of powers out. Humans first. Rings out. People are screaming, the crowd begins to panic. What do? Thor. I fly up and try to shout to the crowd to stay calm while also scanning for the person who may have been the bomber. The Invisible Woman. I use force fields to protect who I can from falling debris. The Doctor IDK. I just go home. Me. Oh, you're going home to research the bomber? Or the Doctor? Nope. Just gonna go home. Me. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what to do with that. The Doctor. Shrug. Me. Do you not want to play? The Doctor. Not really. And that was it. Game lasted 4 minutes. Still not sure what the hell that was. My DM decided to help our PC team as a DMPC. My DM decided to help our team by joining. Our DM created a character at the beginning of the game, which is fully understandable. The character was a story progressor, essentially. I have no problem with this. A character used to progress a story is fine. My problem is this. He made it, so his character has an infotisp. That's not a joke, that's what his character sheet says. Can use any spell at will, and only has to touch something to kill it, as he has unlimited death touch. He also has roughly 20 large slimes. Every combat that we've had he decides that he wants to demonstrate his power to us. And does something new to just kill whatever enemy we are fighting. A giant king, that is basically a Dark Souls type character that he can kill in one turn. Oh man, that's fun for the players. I honestly didn't expect it to work. Is his excuse every time. I want to drop out of this campaign. But I don't want to upset my friend. What do? I'm not having fun just sitting there trying to do a fight where I get one turn before whatever we are fighting dies because he can do 50d10 damage from a single spell. Then his slimes come right after him, doing basically the same thing. I don't know how, but they do. The downside of doing the right thing. So, a few weeks back, I left my table because we didn't want the same thing at the same table. Makes sense. If I had posted my grievances here, half the comments would probably have suggested I find another table. Now I'm into looking in LFG for a new table. I've sent over 10 applications, got about 3 or 4 interviews now, and to this point I just wasn't picked. I will still go through fitting games this morning and do it again to have a place at a table that better fits my style. But I get it. When a player clearly isn't happy at their table and they hesitate to leave, it's because they don't want to be where I am. Looking unsuccessfully. and every time I get a new message saying that they picked someone else, I'm wondering what I did or said wrong. So yeah, it's easy to leave a table. It's very hard to find a new one. Doesn't mean they shouldn't still leave. Just, there is a tangible cost to even the right choice. I think I'm getting pushed around by one of my groups. I've been playing in a group with some people I met online for almost a year now, and so far only my character has ever had any sort of negative story beats happen to him out of a party of 4. He's died, he's been thrown around between warlock patrons like a toy, he's been possessed by his patron, etc. Meanwhile the rest of the party hasn't had anything really happen to them. Even when it looked like the barbarian's parents were in danger, they were completely fine and nothing bad happened to them. The worst thing that's happened to the rest of them happened before the campaign started, and is the reason the sorcerer is traveling. I wouldn't really think much about it, but a lot of the party banter towards me has also gotten almost excessively mean-spirited lately too. Every time my character tries to do something, one or two of the party say they want him to die. When a plot point for the cleric was thrown out, everybody wanted to do it. But when I put my foot down, after they put it off to do their own things, they got really exasperated and mad at me, and I had to force them to do the thing they were excited to do a few weeks before. When I heard my character actually spend time with someone out of the party, the barbarian kept wanting it to go poorly. While only 2/3 party members are really doing anything, the other party member and the DM haven't said anything to get them to stop. We are ending that part of the story soon, and the DM has been dropping hints about doing something with my character's parents after the other party has interacted with them. But I just don't know if I want to deal with that while people jeer at me like has been happening for a good portion of the campaign now. I know I should talk to them, but I don't want to rock the boat so close to the end. No fantasy races means no fantasy races. I wrote a book. I don't want to dox myself, but the book is about a medieval exploration looking for a lost magical city. They actually find a Lovecraftian cult and unearth a church conspiracy. There aren't fantasy races and the only magic classes are warlocks, psionics and clerics. I'll let my Cthulhu group know about it, and they all seemed interested. I explained that it would be set in my book. They're all aware of it. I laid out the guidelines and they all make characters for session 0. They're all going around the table introducing themselves when one PC starts explaining that she's an elf from some weird elf place. I ask her if she remembers the restrictions, and she explains she read the core books. I tell her there's only humans in this world, and she asks if we're playing 5e. I tell her yay, but there's still not any humans. She asks why are we playing 5e, then I tell her that I'm only able to DM 5e since I'm not too confident with other systems. She starts explaining why 5e is bad for games without multiple races. I'll let her give her spiel before telling her that I'm still gonna run 5e without humans. She tells me that doesn't make sense. We start arguing about the relative strengths of 5e. I tell her I'm not gonna change on this, and she shows me her article explaining why 5e is good. I tell her if she keeps the elf she can't play, and she says she doesn't want to play a game with someone hosgutting 5e. I tell her that's fine and I'm glad we figured this out early. She starts debating the rest of the table, trying to get them to agree with her. Eventually she leaves and tells the GM for the other game that I'm running a shitty 5e game. She texts the GM just insulting me for choosing to restrict things, and when the GM defended me, she started insulting him. The GM ended up kicking her from his game. All of this shit happened because she's mad at me for different main choices. Edit. Sorry, my English is not the most well cleaned. A pain many of you will feel. I've been DMing for a Pathfinder group for about 4 years now, since solidly before the lockdowns. Frequency has varied, but usually every week or every other week. We started at level 4 and are currently level 16. We have grown from trudging across the rural countryside in a wagon to scouring the depths of literal hell with that same wagon. It's been places, man. We have built up stories, plots, characters. We have numerous running gags. A player that had to step away has returned for the final stretch. I have plans for the conclusion of many plot lines, literally about to happen. I have a big thing ready to go involving a gag from the entire campaign long and a false Hydra. They're literally on the verge of bargaining with Asmodeus and killing a god. Over the past year, scheduling conflicts have increased. Players have started ghosting on sessions and apologizing after for oversleeping or something. Quite a bit of talk, but session after session gets called off. I'll claim next session happens even with only one of you. Then the one who does show never signs on because no one else says they are ready. It feels like some have lost interest and others have lost availability and all have lost accountability. We haven't played in months. I've actually given up at this point. I stopped asking. It pains me. We were this close. I could wrap this whole campaign up in 34 sessions. And I've told them this. Then, nothing. I know it's not as dramatic as a lot of the stories on here. But in my eyes it's a very real and very relatable horror. Guess I just needed to vent.